Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everybody's staying warm. We finally had winter pretty much across Canada. So I'm joined today by Victoria Clooney on the other side of the country in balmy Ottawa. How are you doing today, Victoria?
I'm very good. I don't think you're allowed to talk about winter in Kelowna. I'm just going to preface that while I'm here in Ottawa in a snowstorm.
Well, I mean, I grew up on the prairies in Saskatchewan and Alberta, so to be fair, I kind of
Okay.
suffered through that. So there is snow out right now outside in Kelowna, so it does snow here now and again.
I'll give you a
But
pass.
there you go. So today we're talking all about seller psychology and win-win deals. So I want to first give my audience a little bit of an intro to your background. You and I met, obviously, we did the summit, recently, and you're military veteran, you're 20 plus years in the military, plus you've got a master's degree in organizational psychology. So, you can have a very unique angle to, seller motivation and, how things tick. And especially with I love the story about the Breeze. You bought the Breeze Motel largely because the seller liked you. You weren't the first choice, but I think that played a huge role in that. So, yeah, welcome, Victoria, and I'm excited to do this with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to somebody today about this, about how, when you're in the military bubble, you're surrounded by just military people. And we call you people civilians outside of the military. And so I've really been exposed over the past couple of years to more civilian living and lifestyle. And what I've realized in that time, things that seem normal within the bubble of the military kind of stand out in this world. And so I've really been able to hone those skills that I've developed, over the past 22 plus years in the military. And then with my degree, and have been able to just like apply it in the real estate world, and it's been amazing. So leaning in, I love psychology, I love connecting with people, I love human behavior, I love understanding how people tick, I like understanding motivation. And so when you can become trained in your own regulation and then you can observe others, it really gives you a bit of a leg up. So we're going to kind of spill some tea on that.
Spill some tea, and I know you didn't just transition from military to beginner real estate investor. You've also been investing for a
Yeah.
number of years as well, so simultaneously at the same time. So
Right.
So once again, folks, this is kind of a sneak preview. The master class is in 1 week from today. So if I've got my calendar right, it's January the 18th. We're going to be meeting, I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 4 p.m. Pacific, somewhere in the middle in Central time. So class is going to be about an hour. Registration has been just going gangbusters. We've only got a few
Amazing.
spots left. This is 100% free to join. This is
Mhm.
a very hotly anticipated class because honestly, this isn't something that a lot of people really talk about when dealing with buyer and seller. You think, well, I'm just dealing with realtor or broker, they're going to put my offer forward and that's it. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there?
Absolutely. And we're going to be bringing like real life case studies where, I've got the leg up, and then talking about, how to understand the seller's motivation. So some of the strategies that you can put in place to, I always like to say, it's like you're writing a story, painting a picture of what you can build together, piece together the information, because sellers aren't going to give you all the information up front. That would be too easy. And so to be able to go through some observations that you can start layering and then being able to structure an offer that brings empathy to the table. We're actually going to talk about empathy. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about even, a lot of people don't understand the difference between, say, empathy and sympathy, right? Like sympathy is feeling bad for a seller, but empathy would be really understanding the seller's position. And when you understand the seller's position, you can craft an offer that the seller will want to accept because you're putting yourself in their shoes. And so we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about also one of the things that I see a big mistake investors making is if the deal doesn't go the direction that you want it to go, sometimes you can burn some bridges. You get a little upset, a little hot-headed. We all feel those emotions. And so I never burn a bridge. I really try no matter what, because I've had situations where it didn't go the way I wanted to go. But then when you circle back, It could be, 6 months later, it could be a year. Some people it's 5 years later, but you've kept and maintained that and you foster relationships. And so these are the little tips that will make the difference in those that are successful and those that are not.
Yeah, I love the way you worded that. Keeping that good reputation, keeping the good impression going, because
Yeah.
I mean, as a seller, I've sold a lot of properties too. A lot of my case studies are going to be my own experiences with buyers and how they've treated me. And
Okay.
it's key. And what you said is bang on. I mean, probably a third of the deals I bought, I didn't get on the first try. It took multiple rounds of negotiation. And I mean, if you do foolish things out of the gate, if you're not approaching it with empathy in the seller's position, because their situations are all different. I mean, we're basically going to be talking about five things. So, what drives people to sell? How do you get what you want? I kind of wrote it down here. The best strategies to do this, to negotiate win-win, what to do, what not to do, and how to open the lines of communication. Now, this
Mm.
is something you've had a lot of experience at. Just want to quickly touch on each of these really quickly, kind of give a tease of what we're going to be talking about. Why do sellers sell to begin with? I think this is the first thing to understand, right? I mean, everybody's situation is different. So I think the key is trying to figure out, why they're selling and what they want. But, every case is different. So for me, multifamily, the way multifamily is priced, then you've bought a lot of multifamily too. So you understand that, as a buyer, we want some upside, we want some value add. We don't want just to buy the building and do nothing, or your hotel. You want to be able to add value to it.
Absolutely.
And as the seller, you want to be able to sell at, maybe more a premium of what your financials are currently generating, but you don't want to put in the money or the effort to do the full value add. So where the selling point is somewhere in the middle, right? So, the purposes of what we're going to be talking about is how do we bridge that gap? How do we kind of, as the buyer, how do we get into the seller's head, and how does the seller get into the buyer's head, and vice versa? Because we've both been in both situations as the buyer and the seller. So that's why this is going to be a really interesting discussion.
I love it. And like bringing that to the table, right? Understanding that dynamic. And then where the advanced investor will go is like adding the extra layers to it. And so then, okay, why does the seller want to sell? Do they need the money? Because if they need the money, there's certain strategies that are just not going to work that we would try to implement. And so being able to craft that offer and not waste your time and just get a hard no right away. And so that's where it's like taking it to that next level is going to really make or break that deal, essentially.
Yeah, and every deal is not necessarily going to work, right? Some sellers are completely out to lunch on values, and some buyers' expectations are completely
Absolutely.
unrealistic too. So,
Absolutely.
out of 100 deals, maybe those 4 or 5 that might work, we want to make sure we really, I would say, nurture those relationships,
Mm.
and try to just put your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
I like the to-dos and not to-dos, and I've stepped on a lot of these mistakes early on,
Yeah.
unintentionally insulting sellers, because they can be quite sensitive about their property, especially if they're older, they've managed it forever.
Mm.
Um, I've had people come to me just randomly saying, "Hey, I want to buy your property, but I only do value add." So you're basically telling me I'm a shitty operator and I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
unintentionally.
Yeah, no,
That's a good
these are great
example.
points. These are great points. And it's really actually really great that you're coming from a seller's perspective, right? Because yeah, you have to think of it in the seller's shoes and what does the seller want to hear? What's going to make them feel good? What's going to like I always try to think, what are the biggest concerns that a seller has? And when we talk about creative financing, a lot of times we go right to the vendor take back. And this is a
Yeah.
great time for vendor take back. We're at high interest rates. One of the concerns that a seller has, and I'll just give this one teaser, I'm not going to
Okay.
spill all the tea just yet, but one of the concerns would be if they don't know you, confidence in you, because that's a risk to them that you're not going to make those payments. Yes, of course, they would get the property back depending on what position they're in for the mortgage. If they're first position, then they get that back, but it could come back
Yeah.
be returned in worse condition. You may not make the payments, and so that's a big risk to a seller. And so coming with giving them that confidence, how can you show up and give sellers confidence in you as a buyer. Often it can be like your presence online. A lot of people Google
Yeah,
you. LinkedIn,
totally.
LinkedIn is an area that I really learned is an important area to make sure that you pad up. And so it's all these little things, they matter.
Yeah, and representation, and today everything is so public. I mean, if you tweeted something 5 years ago, somebody can find it.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just online. I mean, there's two ways to deal with sellers in my experience. There's either with an intermediary, a broker, or sometimes without, sometimes directly to sellers. Now, I've had great success when I've been able to meet sellers actually face to face and sit in a room, right? It's very much different than trying to negotiate or put your best foot forward through a broker. Because then, especially if there's two brokers or two realtors involved, you have to, there's certain ways to do that. I'm not going to spill my tea either, but I'm going to suggest, I'm going to talk all about next week about this, how you can do this in both scenarios. And I've been in a situation recently, like a year ago, where I was trying to buy a business. And one of the first things we did is we got into a room with we had one realtor representing both sides kind of thing. And immediately I could tell this was going to go nowhere because the sellers were just eh, like just not willing to give on anything and completely unrealistic, right? So, when you get face to face, it can be very different than going
Oh,
through a broker. It can be positive or negative, right? So, in general, when you have the opportunity to meet someone face to face,
mhm.
you're usually in an advantageous position, at least in my experience. Now, I don't know if you can say the
It's
same.
it's interesting, so interesting. So yes, I'm used to negotiating, by email or however written, and I've also negotiated in person, and they're very different situations, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually really enjoy the in person because I'm a people person, and I have developed my communication skills, so I feel like that's an advantage. However, it's interesting because there's different biases that will come with that behind the screen or the camera, and then you might have a different persona, or you could be more thoughtful when you're writing. And so people can often struggle if they're not used to being quick thoughts and they're not prepared up front to be able to negotiate or pivot. And so that can add different challenges to it. And yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And the more that you invest in educating yourself and practicing, putting yourself in situations, that's going to really be helpful and hone those skills, because the only way to do it is by getting through the uncomfortable stages of the beginning.
And you just nailed on a great point there. And, this is one of these things with real estate investing. It's not something you can really learn in a course. This is what comes over time. So the purpose of this masterclass is just to share with people, especially people that are new. I'm going to share a lot of the don't do's because I learned the hard way on a lot of things that can really save people a lot of time,
Absolutely.
effort, and most importantly, of course, money. Losing stuff. But a lot of stuff I look back, and I'm sure you can look back too. I look back to the beginning of how I behaved, what my expectations were, how I presented myself to today, and it's just night and day. So I think this is going to be incredibly valuable to really anybody watching, but especially people that are just starting out that maybe don't know, because real estate's a small world. I mean, you might think that what you're doing now isn't going to impact something else, but you may be wrong about that.
Oh my, it's so small. It's so small.
Yeah,
And even before I even came into this world, people are coming out of the woodwork that I dealt with years and years ago on private sales,
yeah,
negotiated. And the thing that really sat with me, and I'm just so glad, and it just reinforces the behavior of just being, having integrity
yeah.
and treating everybody the same and with kindness and maintaining that front. Because even when you think, just as you said, you're not known, now I'm a little more known. And so I'm so glad that I have maintained that, because it would, it uncovers it real quick. And people see through that. And so just be a genuine person. That's where the empathy comes in. I know, like, we're all here to make money. We can put that on the table. We're making money, but there's ways that we can do it without, you know, giving up our values.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, especially today, and what I find too is, one of the things leading up to this is I was kind of looking at, hey, why is Joe always getting all the good deals? How does he just keep getting deal after deal after deal? Is he lucky? Is he in the mafia? What's going on here? But then you realize is he's done exactly what you've said, people that have high integrity close when they say they're going to close,
Yes,
do things the right way. Now, it's not always possible or easy to do what you say 100% of the time, right? And this is where, as human beings, as an investors, everyone invariably makes mistakes at some point,
absolutely.
and that's a part of growth too. And a lot of people, recognize, when you make mistakes and when you reach out and ask for help and these kind of things too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because perfection's not the goal. The goal is to lead with integrity. Because when you always lead with integrity, then you're going in the right direction and do your best. And communication. I've always found that to be the best way. And when you make a mistake, accountability. Because the ones that don't take accountability for their actions, people see right through it. And what it tells me when I'm working with somebody and they make a mistake and they can't own that mistake and they're not accountable for it, it tells me they'll do it again. That's it,
Yeah,
plain and simple. And so I lose a lot of respect and I lose a lot of faith in their abilities. I know we kind of got off target there, but this is all
yeah,
about, it's the interpersonal skills, it's the relationships, it's cultivating that. And we need to do that with our sellers and build rapport with our sellers and show up when you say you're going to show up, do what you say you're going to do. There's so many things that you can do that will give the seller confidence in you as the buyer, and that's at the end of the day what they want.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. That's awesome. This is gonna be so much fun. I
Oh,
can't
we
wait.
could go,
7 days from now, folks, you got to get your registrations in because we do have limited spaces. I really don't want you to miss out on this. One of the main things we're going to be discussing is objections, seller objections. There's going to be objections to anything, right? So, like for example, if I said to Victoria right now, "Hey, Victoria, I want to buy the breeze from you. Would you sell it to me today?" You've probably got some objections
nope.
over there, right? you
Over
know,
my dead body.
Right, exactly, right. So, I mean, this is what we're going to do. We're kind of going to, flip the script, maybe do a little bit of role playing as part of this, because there's going to be seller objections. So, we are going to talk about these objections and how we can, navigate this in the seller psychology to get what they want and get what we want at the same time. And like I said, you don't see this discussion really happening much between investors. It's kind of like almost like secret.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
I'm really
true.
excited to
Yeah.
do this, and yeah, so this 7 days, Victoria, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I can't wait. I can't wait. No, it'll be a lot. It will be a lot of fun. It's such an interesting topic. And, I'm sure we'll get some good questions and it'll just be eye opening. And I'm excited to learn from you, Corey. I want to hear all the don'ts. I will eat up all of your lessons learned for sure, because we'll continue to make the mistakes. But I just know that anytime that I've been uncomfortable doing something, I just continue to do it over and over again. And I continue to improve on the last time. And it's put me in a place now where I just feel so comfortable. And I hold on to that feeling and I remember what it's like to get started. So I empathize with all the new investors that feel nervous, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Okay, we'll cut it there for now. So see you guys next week. So you can register at the link below the video. So this will be on YouTube and Facebook. Click the link, register today if you can, as soon as you can while there's still some spaces. And we'll see you next week on Thursday at the 18th.
Yeah.
So be there with bells on. All
Thanks.
right.